Okay everybody, we're in the shop today and I got two projects for you that we're going to combine into one single video. The first of which is we're actually going to update the Harbor Freight lift here with a wheel chock from Condor, and then the second job, once we get that one done, is I have to actually work on the KLR650. We got to put a rear shock on this thing. So let's jump right in. Now the first order of business is actually working on the lift here. So this is a recent purchase of mine. I bought it secondhand. It's just a basic generic Harbor Freight lift. It's foot powered. Seems to work well, but I knew going in that I would want to replace the wheel chock. So this has the kind of screw type. It's par for the course on what you would get for something that's from Harbor Freight. You cannot expect something amazing. So I know I want to update that thing, and to do that, we're actually going to use a wheel chock, an SC2000 from Condor lifts. Now, I actually reached out to Condor on this one because I have been using these same wheel chocks for years now. So that is the same wheel chock that I outfitted onto this lift over here. I've had this lift for probably about 6 years now. And after about a year and a half, the original screw type jack gave out and I wanted to replace it with something. Now, as you guys know, I work alone in here, so it is very difficult sometimes to wheel bikes up and onto the lift, and I need stability. So if I had a screw type jack and I go to wheel a bike up here, I have to hold the bike and then try to use a free hand to go ahead and tighten the front wheel to make sure it doesn't move. Well, with a wheel chock, you eliminate all of that. A lot of times I don't even use straps anymore. You wheel the bike up, you get it set into the kind of cradle here, and it just works. You can adjust this thing to a multitude of different wheel sizes, and it just works. And one of my favorite things for this one, whenever you're doing a lot of service, sometimes you got to take your front wheel off. Okay, I can pull these two pins here, remove this whole front section, and that allows me to actually remove the front wheel without having to take the bike off the ramp or something like that. It just makes it easy. And that same chock is exactly what I use in my van. So let me show you my setup there. Okay, now in the van, I have another pair of SC2000s. These ones are modified, but these make life so easy. So, granted, these are modified, so it's not something that's, say, store-bought in this form, but you can buy versions of these chocks that fit into E-Track or something that are quick detach. You can buy them in a multitude of different varieties, but this was more of a custom application that I did for myself. So I actually cut the floor back, I welded in some E-Track on the floor, and then these guys right here are actually to support a 2x4 or something like that. Drilled a hole in them, and I made a drawbar setup that goes all the way across. And what I did is I welded a piece of angle iron on the back of the chock. What this allows me to do is actually position these side to side to fit whatever kind of application I need. So that is a really cool system, and I'm telling you, these two chocks just make it so easy to load and unload bikes in here. They're very stable. I have put thousands and thousands of miles with bikes in here and never had a single trouble. So very, very good investment here. So as I said, thousands of miles on a variety of different bikes, whether they be big or small. Never had a single trouble out of those chocks. And because I have had such great success using these things and I like the versatility of it, that's exactly why I wanted to put one on this lift here. So let's go ahead and unbox it, and I'll show you guys exactly what it comes with, and we'll get it mounted on the lift. Now this company is actually based over in Illinois, so they're very close to me as well. I'm just near St. Louis. But I spoke with them on the phone. They have been nothing but nice. That's hardware. The system back here is kind of where the magic happens. Pull one of these pins, put this thing in like transport mode basically. It's just very easy to use. This is like the saddle for the wheel. That goes in there, and you can adjust it front and back for your wheel diameter. Super easy. You can make a change in a matter of seconds. Now you'll notice these 4 kind of like wing screws here. That is actually for their mounting bracket. So basically what we're going to be doing is bolting these down to the lift. And that's going to allow us to actually move the Chock back and forth on these mounting pads and get even more adjustment or more versatility on the table itself. So yeah, all we got to do, go ahead and take this off and we will put that on. Okay, we got the old screw jack off. Alright, we got the old screw Chock off. Nothing too crazy with this thing, just 4 bolts. The good stuff. So what I have to do here is undo 2 of these screws. We'll kind of position our brackets where we want them, and then we will just mark it, drill our holes, and bolt it down. We just have to be careful of, you know, what is potentially underneath this thing so we don't interfere with like a cross member or something like that. But Condor supplies the hardware. Making life easy. So I think I'll position it right here. That way we have 2 adjustment points to the rear, which means if we scoot this thing all the way forward and we end up needing a longer bike, I can move the whole Chock forward with just unscrewing these bolts and just threading them back in. So I set the Chock on here and then just kind of put it where I thought it was going to have to sit, measured it out, and it was perfectly square. So there's that. So I've got my dots right here, so there's my drill marks. Start drilling. Alright, time to actually bolt this thing down. So for this I'm actually going to run the 2 rearward bolts upward because there is a bracket when this thing folds down that might be kind of close, so I'm going to play it safe with going upside down on this, and I don't feel like it's going to interfere too much. And if it does, we'll get shorter bolts. And there it is, 4 bolts, goes right on. So now it's time to put the saddle on, and we're gonna adjust this for about a 21-inch front wheel because that is what the KLR gets. So what I have found by using all these other Chocks is the center one seems to work well for about 19s. This is gonna be our mark for about 21s, and you know what? If it's wrong, it's easy to change, it takes 5 seconds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lower this thing down. We'll get the KLR up here, but unfortunately we're getting into the period of the day where I can't really film in here because of the glare. But we are working on that. Soon enough, I'm going to have some window tint on this, and that will really help. But while we still have a moment, I'm going to do that. let go. Okay, on to the KLR project. The next thing to be unboxed is the new rear shock. This comes from Cogent. I've never used them before, but they come very highly recommended in the kind of KLR world. They offer 2 different versions of this shock, as well as many other products and stuff. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. They have no idea I'm making this video, but I needed something to replace the just completely worn out stock rear shock because it gave out on me this past September at the Adventure Palooza, and I honestly haven't ridden the bike since then, and it's now 1 week until the next Adventure Palooza, so yeah. Anyway, a stock replacement shock was not going to be the wisest choice, and this is kind of their, I don't even want to say middle of the road because it's still a very, very nice shock. And it's going to be valved for the weight of the bike and then sprung for the weight, and it's really nice. Way too nice for that bike, let me tell you. I like. Whew. Yep, that's way too nice for this bike. Oh my god. It's a good looking shock, let me tell you. Yes. Lifesavers. Okay, change of plans. We're doing way more work. So I knew this thing needed brake pads, but yeah, we're right there. So I have some brake pads coming, and then I noticed that I don't know if you guys can see the motion there, but carrier bearing is completely wore out, and then moving the wheel bearings are messed up. The chain has been bad for like the last 10,000 miles, so yeah. Got a chain and sprockets on order. So we're gonna go ahead and just pull the whole swing arm off. We're gonna clean all the linkages and bushings and all that stuff, and then we're gonna have a whole fresh rear end. So sprockets, chain, wheel bearings, brake pads, and then I did go ahead and get some actual quality foot pegs on order. I bought these secondhand. They didn't have any springs in them, and these are really dangerous. They catch your boot, and then I just have some pegs coming. So the whole back half of this bike is gonna get the attention that it finally deserves. Okay, well, it's been a few days since the last clips, and gonna have to give you guys an update on the KLR. It's a little bit more in depth than originally anticipated, so let's check out where I'm at. I'll walk you through everything I'm doing. So once we started working on the KLR, I realized there's a lot more wrong with it and a lot more that needed attention than originally anticipated. So for one, all of the linkages and stuff for the suspension, they were past due for any type of service because I've never serviced this thing. But anyway, the swing arm I'm currently working on getting off. The pivot bolt here is pretty well seized, but I did get it to move last night, which was awesome. So I'm gonna work on that this morning. I've been soaking it with penetrating oil for the last like 3-4 days. So yeah, and I went ahead and ordered a new set of sprockets and a chain as well as rear wheel bearings, as those were crunchy. Got a new set of brake pads too because I was right at the limit. So I've replaced those in the past, but we're gonna go ahead and I'm probably not gonna disassemble the caliper, but I will at least try to, wipe it down and give it a good scrubbing. And of course, got the shock here. We've got new foot pegs on, they should be here. But among all the other stuff I've talked about, I do have all of my parts here already. And I've already been hard at work on like getting the cush drive cleaned up. So I went ahead and got the bearing out of this, as that was garbage. So this thing is very crunchy, so we're just doing all of it, like my A big link here. I've already got this thing cleaned up, and we're going to go ahead and re-grease everything and reassemble when the time comes. But first, I have to get the swing arm off, of course. But that's what I'm working on today, so we'll try to get most of this knocked out. Just hopefully I can get that swing arm bolt out. So in a previous video, I touched on my ultrasonic cleaner and the size, and I always recommend getting a 30 liter, the biggest you can, for multiple reasons. Anything that fits in here goes in here, so quick way of cleaning up the swing arm and all of those crevices and things like that. So yeah, if you can get a 30 liter, get one, get the biggest you can, it's worth it. Okay, now I'm working on the bushings and bearings for the swing arm itself, so I've already cleaned up the majority of them, but 3 of them, the ones for the actual swing arm pivot, the one that was seized with the bolt, as well as, let's see, I think the big one for the lower link here that went into the frame. Just working on getting those things kind of set up. So on the big one, I was actually able to kind of clean out the rust on the inside with a small master cylinder hone, so that worked great. But these little guys, there was still a little bit of corrosion on the inside, which would have just gotten worse. And I've been trying to clean them with, say, a combination of steel and brass brushes like that on a drill. Didn't work. So I happen to have a counter bore setup that I use on the lathe, and the OD of this is exactly the ID of this, and it fits very securely over that. So I was actually able to just put a little bit of lube in this thing and then run the drill, feed this onto it, and actually clear that up. So that is pretty awesome. Now, I don't have my lathe here. Otherwise, I would have just chucked that up, and done it, you know, in a safer fashion. But, you know, we don't really have that capability right this second. So let me find the, there it is. Let's see if we can get this thing to focus. So you can see there's a couple areas that still have corrosion, and that would just get worse and worse. So it's good that we can fix this. Now, I know this is dangerous. I'm going to do this by hand. Again, I don't have my lathe handy. I don't have a way of holding this other than by hand. I'm just being very careful. I'm not the guy that they make the warning labels for. That's for other people. So I can still be safe while doing some semi-dangerous stuff. Right now it's still notchy. All right, it's about as good as we're gonna get, but it's a lot better than it was. Okay, we have everything greased and assembled, so our bushings are back into the linkage there. We have our bushings reinstalled in the swing arms, so those have been cleaned up, everything greased accordingly. Our bolts, I have cleaned up the 2 necessary ones, and then we have those greased as well, so we're taking no chances. Now, I have already taken the time to go ahead and just clean up the kind of work area on the KLR. It's not gonna look brand new, but it's looking pretty good. As good as it needs to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the swing arm over here. We'll start assembly. Okay, we have all of the linkage installed and torqued down. So you guys saw me fighting with installing this mid-link right here. And it was just like ever so tight. I couldn't squeeze it in there on the frame. So what I ended up doing, which is what I should have done originally, was loosen the engine mount bolt right there. And it just as soon as I cracked it loose, this thing just kind of went right in. It was just that much tension. But once I loosened that, that went in. The rest of it is assembled. Very straightforward. So I'm excited to use this shock. It looks good. Now it's time to go ahead and get the rear wheel on. Got to clean a few things up still. As you saw, I got the bearings and whatnot on here. And I've got all my hardware cleaned up, so we'll also work on the brake caliper, get that thing cleaned up, get the chain on, and we're moving right along. Okay, the KLR is done along with the actual wheel chock on the lift. So this thing's ready to go for another X amount of miles. Can't really complain that, you know, all the suspension was needing service and stuff like that. I mean, this thing gave me 10,000 miles of basically trouble-free enjoyment, and can't be mad at that. So good bike, and we're going to continue to give it what it needs. I know it could use some steering bearings right now, which is a little bit unfortunate because I've recently greased them, but they've just been beaten to death. So we're gonna go and replace those eventually. But for now, this thing is gonna get enjoyed for the rest of the season. Maybe we'll do a little bit in the winter. But hopefully you guys like this kind of mashup of an episode. I thought it was really cool to do. And I would greatly appreciate it if you went and checked out Condor wheel chocks. I'll have all of their information down below. They've been really good to me and they make a good product, and I will continue to use them. But until next time, I hope you guys like this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.